We welcome in a man who is a professional, and not just in basketball, but in life, as he's active on LinkedIn. That's where we first messaged. This man has been a champion at many levels, the NCAA, the ABL, and NBL. The man that controls the paint like he's an artist. You better not get him confused with the director. He has a simple job. He throws an orange ball into an orange hoop. The man who likes to throw parties. What kind, you ask? Block parties! The man who got a recent fresh cut. We welcome in Josh Boone. What is going on, my man?
What's going on? You forgot Bahrain.
Bahrain, yeah,
as well, but
yep.
I'll let that one slide for right now.
Three times over there in Bahrain, right?
Yeah. We won basically everything. My first time over there, yeah.
Absolutely.
Didn't do so well my second time over there, but first time over there was pretty good, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, Josh, we appreciate you joining us. As we could, as you can tell, perfection is what I strive for, but not always achieve. But how's everything going? How's your summer been?
It's been good. It's been good. I had a little minor knee surgery a couple of months ago. I had been playing with some torn meniscus, a couple other little things in one of my knees for a while, and finally just decided it was kind of time to get it taken care of. Most guys play with injuries. I've played with injuries my whole career, but this was kind of one of those things that it just made sense. I had a little bit of time, and it was going to really benefit me to get it taken care of. So had it done, been recovered, been back to working out on the court, and now I'm just getting ready to head out here sometime in the next couple of weeks.
All right, that's what I love to hear. And talking about the court, we're going to start with your career. We're going to talk about the early days. And Josh, probably the only thing that we have in common is we're both from Maryland and we're both handsome. That's it. But growing up in a similar area, I knew you were a high school standout at South Carroll, but I had no idea how good you were. In high school, you averaged 20 points, 14 and a half rebounds, and 7 blocks per game. I don't think I've blocked 7 shots in my career. I'm 5'5". Your senior,
yeah, probably not then.
hey, I blocked somebody that was 6'3" one time. That's my claim to fame. I would never block you though.
Probably not, no.
But your senior season, you took the team to the regional semifinals. Only their second appearance there, and after high school, you'd go to West Nottingham Academy, where your stats would be even better, averaging 28 points per game, 16 rebounds, and 9.7 blocks.
Yeah, state semis, man. State semifinals. Come on.
State semis.
State semis versus regional semis. Very, very different.
Very, very different. Absolutely.
Man, you keep me on my toes. I love it.
Yeah, we should have. We had a situation where my senior year in high school, we had a point guard by the name of Marshall Strickland.
Yeah.
Big time recruit coming out of Maryland. Played at DeMatha before he transferred to us. And the problem was that in his 8th grade year, he played like 4 or 5 games with the varsity team at prep school. And our county decided to count that as a full season of eligibility. So about 3 or 4 games into our senior year, they said, nah, he's not allowed to play anymore. So they banned him from playing. We filed injunctions. It didn't matter. So we had a 4-star, 5-star recruit that couldn't even play. I think he averaged close to 30 points a game in his junior year when he was with us. So, with him, the odds of us winning that state championship were very, very high. Without him, we still made it to the semis. So, who can only say what happened if we would have had him? But yeah.
That's crazy. That has to be a rival school, like trying
well,
to
that
it's always something.
There's 3 or 4 schools in the county, and my assumption is they kind of banded together and said, we can't let this happen. Which is kind of funny because at the end of the day, we still won the county anyway. Like, we were still by far the best team in the county. I don't think we lost to any of the county teams that year, regardless of whether we had Marshall or not. But, clearly that was something that they didn't want to have happen, was to let him play. Which sucks because, you're talking about a high school kid. You're talking about, it's not like you're, talking about a professional or whatever. You're talking about a kid that just wants to go out there and play. And you're not going to allow him to play because he played a couple of games when he was in 8th grade.
So
But,
he would
you
go
know,
on to Indiana and play and have himself a good career. But what was it like at school? Was he still there? Was he still like around the team?
Oh yeah,
Because
yeah.
oh
He
my
was he was he
goodness.
was still there. You know, he was still around us as much as possible. He just wasn't allowed to play. You know, so
Oh,
he
That's
he'd still
crazy.
be at the games and whatever. Yeah, but
Well,
you know, what
Josh,
what can you do?
Well, Josh, we'll have this isn't the Marshall Strickland interview. This is the Josh Boone interview, and we'll transition back to you now. I know you thought that Connecticut would give you the best chance to make it to the NBA, but what I think is interesting is Emeka Okafor's presence solidified your decision. And I think a lot of people probably go to college wanting to be the man, especially considering the stats that you put up. But I think it's really admirable that you wanted to learn from him. And I know that James wanted to ask about kind of your process of deciding where to go.
So I remember going to South Carroll High School in Sykesville, Maryland. I went to Richard Montgomery High School, and we had the preseason tournament with Middleton, and we did a little round robin. Everybody would play like 8, 9 quarters. But I saw your jersey on the wall. That was eye opening at a player in kind of almost in the middle of nowhere. It's sort of, I mean, it's close to Baltimore, it's close to DC, but it's still out there a little bit. That this person is about to be a big player at UConn. I was wondering if did anyone else have a chance at you? And how was that recruiting process?
So yeah, I had several schools. I had a grouping of about 6 or 7 schools at the end of the recruiting process. You know, after my senior year at South Carroll, I didn't really have too many of the big name programs, and any of the big name programs that I had at the time either wanted me to redshirt or to do a prep year. You know, physically, my body just wasn't quite ready. You know, I was super super skinny in high school. You know, I couldn't have weighed more than 210 pounds, something like that, but I was 6'8". So I needed to put on weight, and prep school seemed like the better option to me. Um, the kind of, you know, when it started, there were a few schools that came in very early. Rutgers came in very early. St. Joe's, who at the time was a top 10 program in the country, they came in very early as well. But other than that, it was really like low to mid-major schools that were really trying to get me at that point. By the end of the process, my final grouping was UConn, Kansas when Roy Williams was still there, Virginia, Rutgers, St. Joe's, Georgetown. I don't think I'm missing anybody there. You know, there were other schools that popped up here and there, but those were really, the final ones. North Carolina as well. I'm sorry, North Carolina came in very late. But ultimately, my decision came down to UConn or Kansas. I remember when I was at prep school, Roy Williams came to visit me. He came along with one of his assistant coaches, and they came to watch the practice, and then they spoke to us afterwards. So we went into my coach's office, and we all sat down around this table, and Roy had a stack of papers in his hands, and he puts it in the middle of the table, and he says, "This is the first thing he says. He says, look, these are the scholarship papers right here. You don't have to sign them now, but they're here if you want them." And then for about the next hour or so, Roy Williams himself proceeded to try and sell the University of Kansas to me. And I'll be damned if by the end of that, I didn't want to sign those papers. I didn't, but I was very, very close to doing it.
Oh
Um,
man.
but it was a choice between those two, and ultimately, like you said, a lot of it came down to Emeka. UConn is known for UConn is really called Wing U. It's really referred to as
Yeah,
Wing U because most of the pro players that have come out of UConn
hard.
up until the last 10 to 15 years were really wings. You know, you had Karan, you had Ray Allen, you had those guys. Um, but the fact that I would get to learn from who was the guy who was probably the best college basketball player in the country at that time, that was kind of invaluable to me. You know, I didn't go there expecting to start alongside of him like I did. I went there expecting to back him up and come
Yeah.
off the bench. You know, and it just so happened that our skill sets really complemented each other very well, and thus I was put into the starting role, and we were able to bring, the scoring punch from Charlie off the bench, as well as the defensive presence from Hilton off the bench as well.
Yeah, and I mean, like you talked about, you made your impact right away. You started 37 out of 38 games. You averaged 5.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, 1.7 blocks, 55% from the field, and the chemistry just gelled very well your first year. Obviously, hit the ultimate goal, winning the national championship. And I know James kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, starting as a freshman, winning the national championship on one of the best college teams that I can remember, 9 deep, 6 future first-round NBA picks, including Emeka Okafor, we just said, went number 1, Ben Gordon 3, Charlie Villanueva 7, Hilton Armstrong 11, and then your roommate Marcus Williams went 22 right before you went 23 to the Nets. Talk to me how good this team was. The people, they need to know.
I still say there can't be more than 10 or so teams in college basketball history that would have been better than this team. You know, we were really, really good. The fact that we went to the national championship game and we were up by, I think, 20 or very close to it at halftime against a very good Georgia Tech team with several pros on that team as well, says all you need to know. We played a Duke team in the semifinals that had just as many NBA players as we did, and we played them for 16 minutes without the best player in the country because he got into foul trouble in the first half. Coach Calhoun has a rule. He's always had a rule. If you get 2 fouls in the first half, you will sit down for the entire first half. It doesn't matter what the situation. It doesn't matter what the player. And that was demonstrated by the fact that Emeka Okafor got 2 fouls in the national semifinal game. The best player in all of college basketball got 2 fouls in the first 4 minutes of the game, and he sat down for the entire rest of that half. Like I said, it does not matter. So the fact that we were able to do that just says in itself how good we were.
And I was going to say he bounced back and he helped close out that game. But, I mean, you had a phenomenal tip offensive rebound that you hit to him with 25 seconds left that put your team up. I mean, you end up with 14 rebounds. The final wasn't as close, but it almost seemed like that, you know, that game against the 1-seeded Duke where you were playing against Luol Deng and JJ Redick and those boys end up being, you know, the tournament, exactly what kids dream of. And one play makes a difference. And you had a hand in that. I guess that's a rebound assist in a way.
Yeah, that'd be a hockey assist, I guess, is what they might call it. You know, when you get to that level, when it's a game where there are two teams that are so closely matched and so good, it often comes down to those little things like that. You know, whether it's that tip, whether it's a couple of minutes before that, me diving on a loose ball in front of the Duke bench and getting a timeout called to keep possession. Like it's little plays like that that make the difference and allowed us to come back in the game that we were down at the end of the game. You know, we were down 7 with, I think, 3 minutes or so left in that game. And you don't come back against Duke in a situation like that, let alone in the Final Four. So, you know, we made all of the little plays in the last couple of minutes of those games, and ultimately that's the reason we won.
Yeah, and I mean, coming out on top as a freshman, and you'd put up better stats your sophomore year. You'd average 12.4 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, and the most 3 blocks. Similar stats your junior year, and you were on the team that played George Mason in the Elite Eight. And I want to ask you about that game. Them being the 11th seed in the region, UConn, you guys were the number 1 seed. Obviously, you guys are huge favorites. But one of the things that also stood out to me was they had no player that was taller than 6'7". Looking back, what was kind of the mentality? Did you guys think that it was going to be a cakewalk? What do you think you could have done differently? Because at that time, I feel like we hadn't really seen a Cinderella run like that in recent memory.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's first not forget that the number 1 overall seed in the tournament had to play an Elite Eight game against a team that was playing 10 minutes from their campus. So it was basically a home game for them. But, you know, I guess they were playing great basketball at the time. They really were. You know, you really could not take anything away from them. They were playing phenomenal basketball. They were a well-oiled machine. They were playing very well as a team. They had 1 or 2 guys that were, you know, their primary scorers, but pretty much everybody contributed for them. And, you know, for us, I guess the problem was that, you know, I think we had 5 or 6 guys on that team that knew we were going to the NBA after that year. So I think some of our focus was sort of on that and not necessarily on that game. And I think part of the focus was also on the fact that the team that won that game was going to go to the Final Four and play against that Florida team that had Al Horford, Joakim Noah,
Joakim
Corey
Noah,
Brewer. You know, they were
Torian
loaded.
Green.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they went
they
back to
were
back.
they were absolutely loaded. So, you know, I think some of us were probably looking at that as, you know, that's the matchup. Like that's where
Yeah.
we're going. And regardless of whether you overlook a team or whether you may take a team lightly, like you can't take away from the fact that they played a great game. You know, they really did. They were able to beat a team with 6 NBA players on it, 7 NBA players on it, whatever we had, in an Elite Eight game. Like it doesn't get much bigger than that. It really doesn't. You know,
Did you
I obviously we should have been more focused. We should have been more prepared. We should have probably gone inside a little bit more than we did in that game, I think, because we did have the height advantage. But you know, there's a lot of should haves, but ultimately, what matters is the end result, and we lost.
I like how you word that. It's because it was so close. Like Denham Brown, I mean, you were right next to him watching him shoot, and I mean, it looked like it was going down. Was there any thought that you thought that, hey, this could win us the game, as it looked like a great look at the buzzer?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You always think that. You always think that your teammates are going to make those shots, and like you said, it looked good, but unfortunately, it didn't fall, and you know, we ended up going into that locker room very, very disappointed. You know, I was extremely disappointed after that one. I don't think I've ever lost a game that I was more, you know, sad and disappointed after than that game.
Did you
Um,
get in foul trouble early? I know Jeff Adrian had a really good game off the bench, but
you,
you
you
know,
know what? I honestly don't remember. I don't remember if I did or not. There were times in my junior year, where I wasn't getting quite as much playing time as
yeah.
I had been my sophomore year, for various reasons that we don't have to go into. Um, but maybe I have foul trouble. I honestly don't remember. I really don't remember.
So, Josh, I want to ask you because obviously you were an integral part of the team's success. I mean, obviously you win it all in 2004. However, you were very unselfish. You never averaged more than 8 shots per game in any season in college. And you did a lot of the quote unquote dirty work. You know, the rebounding, the blocking, you know, all the way to win the Eastern or the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. Looking back, do you wish that you were a little bit more selfish in college?
Nah, nah. Look where it got me. You know,
Okay.
I'm proof that you don't need to score 20 points a game to have a successful basketball career. You know, that's just a fact. You know, if you look at other sports, you know, take for instance a sport like football. You know, you've got offensive linemen that have had incredible careers that have made millions and millions of dollars, and they've never caught a pass in their life. They've never run a yard in their life. They've never made a tackle in their life. But they do the things that are necessary for teams to win. And I think regardless of the sport, there are always those players that have to do that. And I've just kind of always been one of those guys. You know, I've always been capable of producing in terms of numbers, producing much more than I have. But on, you know, particular teams, there are some times where I just don't need to do that. And for the team's benefit, it is better for me to not be selfish and to not try and shoot the ball every time I get it.
That's a true team player. And, you know, I know that you believed if you had left after your freshman year, you would have easily been a lottery pick. Okafor and Gordon left. You were starting over Charlie Villanueva. This was the year before Rudy Gay, as well as Marcus Williams and Hilton Armstrong being parts of the rotation. I know you had thoughts about winning another national championship, but was there another reason why you didn't go pro?
After my sophomore year
After your
or after
freshman
my
or
freshman year?
sophomore year, I know that you
Well,
thought that your
so
draft stock slipped a little bit.
yeah, I would have been a lottery pick after my freshman or my sophomore year. I would have been, you know, probably mid lottery after my freshman year, and I would have been late lottery after my sophomore year. I have no doubt about that. I didn't leave after my freshman year because I wasn't ready. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I wasn't there yet. After my sophomore year, I was ready. But the entire reason I went back was because I wanted to try and win another championship. You know, as a group, we had that core group that kind of, came in around the same time as I did, and then with the addition of Rudy as well, and all of us looked at it as, hey, let's give this thing one more try, and let's see what we can do this year. So that was really the main reason why I think several other guys ended up coming back, because I think
Shoot,
I think myself, Rudy, or Marcus all could have left after that year as well, but we all wanted to try and get one more crack at it.
I know you talked about it earlier, but I think you were the matchup that was made for Florida, and all those guys came back. I mean, you came back. Y'all were the number 2 overall team going into that tournament. So, I mean, I can imagine you were the number 1 overall
We were the number
team.
one. We were the number. That's what I'm saying. We were the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. We played a road game in the Elite Eight.
So I don't want to dwell on the what ifs because look, your time at UConn was stellar. You ranked 5th in field goal percentage, 5th in block shots, and 5th in blocks per game. During your time there, the team was 85-18 with 2 Big East Conference championships, a Big East tournament title, 3 NCAA appearances, including that 2004 national championship. I get all those stats right?
And 1 lost game in Gamble. So we have 2 arenas. We have the on-campus arena, which is Gamble Pavilion, and we have the Civic Center in Hartford that we play in as well. And in my 3 years there, we lost 1 game in Gamble on campus, and that was the first ever ESPN College Game Day against Pittsburgh.
Oh,
First one they ever did, and it was the only game we ever lost in Gamble. Pittsburgh beat us. I think it was like 77-67.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, because we were really damn good in Gamble. Like as good as we were, just kind of overall in Gamble, we didn't lose. My freshman year, we played an Oklahoma team, and we were both top 5 in the country at that point. And during that game, we were up by 40 against them. That's how good we were in Gamble. And Pittsburgh came in there and kicked our asses on College Game Day.
Jeez. Well, Josh, I mean, look, you lived the dream that every kid wishes when you were selected 23rd overall by the Nets right after Marcus Williams. What did you drink that night?
Oh, I don't drink, man.
You don't drink?
No, I don't drink.
That's awesome.
I don't drink. No, I actually, so I didn't go to the draft. I had decided that if I wasn't going to be a lottery pick, and I wasn't definitely going to, get up on stage and get to shake David Stern's hand, that I wasn't going to go. So I just decided to stay home. I had a few of my closest friends and family at the house because, we going into draft night, we didn't know where I was going. It was kind of funny because basically every major news publication in New York was saying that I had a guarantee from the Knicks at 20, which was not the case at all. I hadn't even talked to the Knicks. I had worked out for them one time, but I had not spoken to them at all. So I don't know where they got this information from or what, but apparently everybody believed it because I remember watching the draft when that number 20 pick came up and the Knicks took Ronaldo Balkman instead of me. I remember listening. I heard the reaction in the crowd at MSG, and you could tell people were like confused because, playing at UConn, everybody knows who you are in New York because the New York media covers UConn. So I think people had read all that stuff and were really expecting it to be me, and then all of a sudden it wasn't me. So you got, this kind of, confused, like, wait, what type of reaction, I think, from the crowd, which was pretty interesting for me to see.
I mean, look, even in the summer league, even for the Nets, I mean, you killed it. You led the league in rebounding. You were 2nd in blocks, and unfortunately, you had to undergo surgery to repair a torn labrum in your left shoulder. But you returned earlier than that 4 to 6 month time frame they give you, and you had a promising rookie season, especially coming back from injury. Your second season was the best of your pro career, averaging career highs in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and block. You started 53 games. You'd be on the Nets for 2 more seasons, finishing your rookie contract before playing overseas in the CBA China League, Euro League, and NBL Australia, Illawarra. Did I say that right?
Yep, Illawarra.
And then most recently in Uruguay. But I want to ask, do you know your career high in the NBA?
26 against the Indiana Pacers.
It's 22 against the Pacers.
I thought no. I had 20. I had 22 against
The
them.
internet is lying. I believe you. The internet is lying.
So I always, I had a little bit of vendetta against Indiana because I probably shouldn't have, but I tended to, when I was younger, take things a little bit too personally that were said when they were really just business. I had trouble separating business from personal. So I had my very first draft workout was in Indiana. I worked out for the Pacers, and I remember Larry Bird and Rick Carlisle were both there watching. And at the end of the workout, they brought me into the workout or into the office, and I remember Rick Carlisle basically, in more or less words, told me to my face that I wasted their time. So I was not really happy about that. And I decided that every time I played Indiana, I was going to make sure I gave it to them. So I think I reset my career high at least 2 or 3 times against Indiana, because I had 22 against them, I had 20 against them, and then I think I had 22, and then 26 was my career high. I don't know why it says 22, because I know for a fact that I had 26 against Indiana one game as well. And that was my career high.
I'm looking at it right now, and it says, if we're talking about the same one, March 28, 2007, said career high 22. I can't find the 26. I believe you. I know you wouldn't lie about your career high.
There was a 26 in there.
Did it happen after the 22?
It would have been after it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think in the game right before that, you had your previous career high before you dropped the 22, the 21 against the Bobcats, and of course Michael Jordan's watching up there.
That was my rookie year.
You didn't miss a shot.
Yeah,
10 for 10.
So I was. Somebody told me this afterward. Apparently, I was the first rookie since Dennis Rodman to go 10 for 10 in a game in the NBA. I didn't even know that was a stat that people kept, but somebody told me after the game.
I mean, nerds keep track of everything.
Yeah.
There's people that do that. But I know, Coach.
It's pretty easy when you got Jason Kidd and Vince Carter throwing you the ball.
Yeah, that's true. Well, Josh, I know that James wants to ask about some of your international playing career.
Yeah, but that's funny. You technically dropped 20 and then another 20 on Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. That's factual. That actually happened. But yeah, playing professional basketball internationally overseas. Basketball is taking you to many places, including China, the Philippines, Bahrain, Estonia, Russia, Turkey, Hong Kong, Australia, Saudi Arabia, and most recently, Uruguay. Coming off a season where you averaged 17-9, so of course you can still play at a high level. Did I miss any destinations here? And what's next?
I don't think so. I wasn't in Saudi. I was in UAE. I was in Dubai, in UAE.
Dubai, okay.
Yeah, I've gotten some offers from Saudi here or there, but I've never actually taken one though.
So that puts you at every continent except Antarctica.
Yeah. So I actually hadn't been to South America until this past season. I just kind of randomly ended up in Uruguay. I was kind of sitting at home waiting for something to happen, and I got an offer to play with the USA team in Puerto Rico for their last qualifying window for the Olympics. We had already we had already made it anyway, but I guess my agent knew the guy that was putting the team together, and they talked about it and they decided that they wanted me to play. But while I was getting ready for that, I also got the contract offer from Uruguay. So I actually signed in Uruguay right before I went out to Puerto Rico with Team USA.
What was that like? I know it was a short stint or whatever, but you put on, the USA jersey. You're playing with, Joe Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, and what was that experience like internationally, USA basketball?
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was really cool. I was pretty disappointed because the second game I had to sit out. I injured my ankle in the first game about halfway through. Played the rest of the game, and then we got to the next game, which was against Mexico. And a guy named Gustavo Ione, who was a very, very big time.
We remember him in the NBA.
Overseas player. Yeah, he played in the NBA, played a bunch of years in EuroLeague, played for Real Madrid, played for a lot of teams. And he was supposed to be playing for the Mexican national team, but he ended up not being there. I still don't know if we have figured out why he didn't play, because up until the start of the game, we thought he was going to play. So I really wanted to play. I'm a guy that's all about matchups. So when I see a matchup like that, I was ready for it.
Yeah.
But it was kind of a collective decision between myself, the coaching staff, and the training staff that it wasn't necessarily worth me going out there because A, Ione wasn't playing, and B, and more importantly, I had already signed the deal in Uruguay, and they didn't want me to further injure my ankle and risk setting me back for the start of that season, because I had to go directly from Puerto Rico straight to Uruguay and start that season there. So we just thought it was probably the best decision to just sit me out of that Mexico game and just get me ready for Uruguay instead.
All right. Well, so we all know that there's good and not so good playing professional ball internationally. Some notables as far as kind of the negative was in China, you're playing really good ball and you get cut for a bigger name in Eddie Curry, and then in the Philippines, you're going through an injury, you're playing through and you get cut not too long later. But the biggest one that stands out to me was this Pinar Carseca incidents in Carseca. And speaking of shaky, Shaka, this GM cut you. I think you were battling through an injury at that time. You took that to FIBA court. You won. You had a guarantee contract that I don't know if you got paid maybe a quarter of that settlement or half of what they owed you. But tell me some of the shady things that happens to players overseas.
I mean, you said it right there. Playing overseas is extremely cutthroat. When you play in the NBA back home, I've always said that you don't have much in the way of locational stability, but you have a ton of contractual stability. Your contracts, once they get to a certain point, they are always guaranteed. So you're going to get that money regardless. But when you play overseas, you can have a fully guaranteed contract and you might still not get that money. Case in point, my situation in Turkey, where I had a fully guaranteed contract. My contract was supposed to be guaranteed for the entire season. And what the GM told me was that, they were going to be replacing me, and I had two options. I could either work out a buyout agreement with them, which was going to be far less beneficial for me, or I could hang around, practice with teams, still get paid, but not be able to play any games. And for a guy in that situation who is in his early 30s and is right in the prime of his career, that's not an option for me. I need to be playing somewhere. So for me to sit out an entire season would have really set me back, would have made it a lot more challenging to find another deal, because teams wouldn't have seen me play. I would have been sitting out for a full year essentially, so nobody would have seen me. And in this business, out of sight, out of mind is a very real thing. If teams don't see you, a lot of times they just forget about you.
And I mean, I'm sure that there's players that maybe not go to FIBA court. Like you had to really stand up and fight the bully that's trying to steal your lunch money. Like, tell me about that process and you standing up for yourself in that situation.
Yeah, I mean, going to FIBA sucks, man, because it's a very expensive undertaking initially. Generally, you don't want to go the FIBA route. And for those that don't understand what that is, FIBA is the governing body that basically oversees and kind of moderates all of international basketball. So, anytime there is a disagreement between a player and a team, FIBA will assign an arbitrator to the case, and then they will determine, whether the team should be paying, whether this player is right, whatever. So when you do this process, they require a substantial amount of money up front. So you really only want to do it if you know you have a very solid case and there's a very high likelihood that you'll win. Because if you win, usually what they'll do is included in the settlement will be the charges that you paid up front as well. So the team will actually reimburse you for that, in addition to paying you whatever FIBA decides they owe you, based on the contract or whatever. So I knew I had a great case. Like I had, it didn't even matter that I had the fully guaranteed contract initially, because I ended up taking a buyout agreement. The only reason I took the buyout was because I needed to get home to see my doctor, and my doctor was only going to be in the area for a very limited amount of time. So I just needed to make sure that nothing serious was going on with my shoulder, which in reality it wasn't. And all I needed was a week and a half off, but the team just wasn't willing to give me a week and a half off. They just decided to cut me anyway, even though I played with the damn thing for a month and a half. So, I needed to get home. I took the buyout, and all they had to do was pay me the month that I was owed already, so the month that I was there at that time, plus an additional month extra. And they were only willing to pay me half of that. So I was messaging the GM, I gave him ample opportunity. And at the end of the day, it was like
a year process.
It was like a 3-year process, bro. Because it was like I waited about a year to actually file with FIBA. And then it took about another year or so, maybe a little bit less, for the case to actually get settled. And then after that, the problem was, even when FIBA ruled in my favor, the team still didn't pay me everything that I was owed. They still only paid me half of what I was owed. So we kept having to go back to FIBA. FIBA initially told us, just wait, just give them time, be patient, whatever. It got to the point where it was like, this is ridiculous. So, finally FIBA was willing to do something about it. So FIBA decided that what they were going to do was they were going to not only make them pay me more, but also fine them as well. And FIBA was going to require money from them. So
it's interesting. Keep going. I mean, keep going. Like this
this is stuff that people just don't know. Like what's going on.
Yeah, you would never know this if you didn't actually, were you part of this world.
What's crazy is everybody thinks that like sports are just entertainment, but they don't realize sports are a business. And we've seen this with lockouts. We've seen this, in baseball, there's arbitration where players will go in front of a judge and argue their worth in front of a team owner. Like people don't realize the business side of sports. I think overseas, especially, it gets swept under the rug.
Yeah. Sports have always been a business. And at the end of the day, the players are the commodity of that business. We are the commodity that gets traded around, that gets valued, that gets passed from person to person, from team to team. But getting back to the Turkey story, once FIBA decided that they were going to also fine the team, and then the team didn't pay then FIBA got pissed. So what they did, and what finally ended up actually getting me all my money, was that FIBA said, okay, here's what's going to happen. Either you are going to pay this owed money to us and to Josh, or we're not going to allow you to register your import players. So you're not going to be able to have any import players until you make this payment. And that, as soon as FIBA did that, immediately the team came back and said, okay, what's your account? But it was so crazy because even at this point, the team was still trying not to pay me all of the money that they owed. They were still trying to shortchange me by, like, I don't know, I want to say it was like 10 to 15% or so. Like, it was just ridiculous. We went back and forth with them 3 times. My agent went back and forth with them 3 times. Oh, we want to pay you, we're going to pay you, but we only have this amount of money. And we're like, no, like, you're going to pay the entire amount. Like, we're tired of this. It's been 4 years now. So then they would come back and say, oh, our owner decided to give us a little bit more money. We're going to pay you this instead of this. And we're like, no, you're going to pay me the full amount. And then they came back a 3rd time and they were like, they were basically offering to pay me like 95% of what I was owed. So my agent was like, look, if you're going to pay this much, you're going to be able to get the rest of the money. Get the rest of the money, pay us all the money. Then we will go to FIBA and tell them that you have paid us, and you will be able to get your import players. So they finally.
Oh man, I love it.
It was a crazy process. Man.
It's a happy ending. We are chopping it up with Josh Boone, basketball player, maybe potential lawyer in the future. Josh, we like to get our guests out of here with a little triple play rapid fire, some this or that questions. You probably haven't been asked some of these before. You game?
Sure.
All right. Would you rather have 30 rebounds or 20 blocks in a game?
20 blocks, I think.
It's a block party, right?
Because I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody getting 20 blocks in a game. I've heard of
All
people
right.
getting 30 rebounds. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody getting 20 blocks.
Okay, I like it.
How many times have you done the 20 rebounds thing? Because I know that's something that's not a stranger to you.
I've done 20 rebounds in almost every league that I've played in. There's only been 1 or 2 leagues that I haven't done it in, but I've had 20 at least probably 5 or 6 times, I think.
Okay. Would you rather fulfill your biggest wish or resolve your biggest regret?
It's funny because resolving my biggest regret would actually fulfill my biggest wish.
Oh, wow. We got 2 in 1 here. All right.
Yeah.
I like it. Which one of these weapons would you rather use for self-defense? A sword or nunchucks?
I would have no idea what to do with the nunchucks, so I would say.
Hey, this is assuming you know how to use them.
I don't know how to use nunchucks, bro. I'd end up hitting myself in the face with them more than I hit somebody else.
Okay.
Probably the sword.
Okay.
I have a thing with knives. I used to kind of collect knives anyway, so probably the sword.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So, big men love their guards. I mean, who is your favorite to play with? We got Marshall Strickland, we got Tyreek Brown, we got Marcus Williams, Spencer Ware, Aaron Brooks, LaMelo Ball, Jason Kidd. Who's number 1 on that list?
Jason Kidd probably is the best. Hands down would be the best guard that I've ever played with.
I mean, that's the right answer.
LaMelo is going to be damn good. LaMelo is going to be very good, and I've been telling. I had numerous conversations with people before he was getting drafted, and I was telling anybody that would listen to me that kid's ceiling is as high as he wants it to be. He could be a perennial all-star if he wants to be. It's just he needs to be in the right situation, surrounded by the right people, and get himself motivated, and he will be that way.
Yeah, you said that this kid was. You said this kid is going to be very, very good for a long time. This was, I feel like, before he even played his first NBA game.
This is too much. This is too much LaMelo Ball talk on this podcast.
No. We got to get it. At what moment did you say this kid's going to be really damn good? At what moment did you're watching it in practice, or watching it in the game, you're like, this is spectacular?
Well, I know. So there was a practice early on in the season. I wasn't sure how good he was. Obviously I've heard all the hype. You see the videos of him scoring 80 or something in that high school game where he just came down and shot it every damn time he touched it. So we knew he was good. We didn't know how good. And I remember there was a practice early on in the year where he made a couple of passes that were just incredible. And I remember I walked over to our head coach at the end of the practice, and I looked at him. I said, "This kid, if he wants to, he's going to lead the league in assists this year." And I think and this is a very good league. The NBL is a very, very good league. We are one of the probably 3 or 4 best leagues in the entire world. And this kid is 17, 18 years old. And I was like, he's going to lead the league in assists. And I think when he got injured, I think he was actually leading the league in assists. If he wasn't, he was second at that point. But that was really the point where I saw how good he could potentially be. And then just kind of being around him every day and seeing it every day firsthand. I have never played with anyone that has more potential and a higher ceiling than that.
Wow, that's high praise. You play with Rudy Gay, right?
Yeah, I played with Rudy, and I played with Rudy in high school. I played with Rudy for several years in AAU basketball. So I saw a young Rudy, and Rudy had crazy potential, but this kid's got even more.
So Josh, I got a few more questions, but they're not sports related. But I want to hear your answer, so let's go.
Okay.
Would you rather never get a paper cut again or never get anything stuck in your teeth again?
Never get a paper cut again. I can use floss.
Thank you. Thank you. Those hurt.
It was in my teeth. Yeah.
Those hurt. What's your favorite cereal?
Favorite cereal? I don't know. I don't eat a lot of cereal.
So you don't drink alcohol. You don't eat cereal.
No, I don't eat a lot of cereal. Like I just had Captain Crunch.
All right, that's a
couple
good
days
answer.
ago.
Good answer.
That's a
good answer. Would you rather wake up in your bed with a porcupine or a skunk?
A skunk. I could wash that off. I can get in the shower and take care of that.
It might take a while, but yeah.
Yeah, but I could deal with that. I've smelled the skunk before. I'm not trying to get stabbed 100 times when I'm in bed. Right?
That's certainly true.
Yeah.
A bell rings every time you're horny, or never be horny again?
Bell rings every time I'm horny.
Ding, 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 right?
That's an
That's an easy
undefeated
one.
question here on Triple Play. That's undefeated. Ring the
I
damn bell.
would be shocked if somebody picked the other one on that one.
That's true.
That would be embarrassing.
Would you rather fight Mike Tyson once or talk like him the rest of your life?
Fight Mike Tyson once.
You think you could take him?
Although Mike is pretty endearing when he talks though, man. Like I've heard him speak on some of these talk shows and whatever, and he's actually pretty interesting when you listen to him. So I think
he's intelligent.
He's gotten better over the years. He's gotten a lot better over the years. You look at some of his early interviews, and he's like, "Man, I just want to eat your kids." But you look at some of the stuff that he's done recently, and I would say, even despite that, I would rather fight him.
Okay. The last one. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck?
One horse-sized duck.
You think you could take it?
I think so. Yeah, unless the thing could fly still. I mean, can it still fly when it's horse-sized?
I mean, it's like a giant duck that's the size of a horse,
so
or 100.
So if it could fly, then it's going to be the duck-sized horses.
I feel it takes like a while to get takeoff, especially for a duck. But
yeah, maybe it can like whack around or whatever.
Yeah,
but I
the duck-sized horses for me. The duck-sized horses, 100 of them.
I mean, you're 6.
Kick them or something.
Yeah, you're 6'11". They ain't reaching you. Well, Josh, we really appreciate.
I got to squeeze in. I had to squeeze in one. All right,
Okay.
so because I'm very curious on this, and I know Doc can relate. So you have a portrait on your father on your right shoulder. This is your tattoo game that I'm talking about as you're showcasing it, and it has a globe underneath. This hand represent him giving the world in your hands. Like that's really dope. Obviously, you thought well about that. You said you wanted to put some on the left arm, but you hadn't figured it out yet. This was a dated quote. Have you put anything on the left arm, or do you have an idea what you want to do there?
Nah, nothing here yet. The odds are it'll be something to do with my mother, but I don't know exactly what it's gonna be yet.
That's
real. I gotta figure it out. Yeah, but I gotta get something, man. I feel unbalanced. Like it's weird just having something here and nothing here.
I'm with that. One last one. Any crazy J.R. Smith in China stories with the fans? Like, because you got the celebrity, it's the NBA lockout. You playing with J.R. and you know the type of aura he has and the type of fans he has. Anything crazy stand out?
I mean, the craziest JR related story for me would be, and this is not a fan thing. This is the exact opposite. We had a road game, and his people used to come with us on the road. It would be his girlfriend, his cousin, I think his sister used to come as well, and his girl and his sister ended up getting into a fight in the stand.
Oh my!
So we
with
had
each other or with the
so they got it with some of the Chinese people. We had to kind of we basically had to stop the game, and we had to kind of jump in and grab them out. And I believe it was his girl actually hit one of our players on accident, like not on purpose. It's just she's in a sea of Chinese people. She just sees everybody converging on her, so she's just swinging. I think she accidentally tagged one of our players, so they weren't happy. What we ended up having to do after the game was we had to get JR and his people out the back door because they were waiting outside. So we sent them out the back door into like a minivan or whatever, and they dipped out. But when we walked out to the bus, there was a couple of women that were standing on the bus. I guess these were the ones that initially got into the altercation with JR's people. They were on our bus, and they refused to get off the bus. Our bus was sitting there for like 30 minutes. We was trying to get these women off the bus, and they wouldn't leave. And our bus got surrounded by about, I would say, 100, 150 of their fans, and wouldn't let us go either. So we were just stuck for probably close to an hour before we finally got those women off the bus and were able to actually get out of that parking lot. But it was looking a little dicey, and it wasn't
Yeah.
like there was, you know, in the NBA you had the police protecting the bus or whatever. Nah,
It was you. Yeah.
it was just us. It was just us against a lot of them, and it actually got to the point where I was like, man, look, if somebody does not get these women off of this bus, I will remove them from the bus and we will get the hell out of
Self.
here because I'm just tired of I'm tired of this. So
You want to go
yeah,
home.
yeah, like we got surrounded. They was throwing stuff at the bus and everything. Like, yeah, it was.
I knew there had to be
Nah,
a good
nah,
like a
that's
story we would never
what
think
a
of.
what a story to end it. Well, Josh, I want to appreciate you coming on. For the people that are listening, you can follow him on the socials, Twitter. We got at @the_real_J Busy. Hadn't been on as active, and on Instagram we got @the_real_J Biz. Josh, before we get you out of here, is there anything you want to plug to our audience? You know, anything that you want to just say that you're working on, or where they can see your highlights, all that good stuff.
No, I mean I just signed a deal in Venezuela, so I'm going to be going out there sometime within the next couple of weeks once they decide exactly when the season's going to start and once the league allows the teams to start getting visas for their airports. So I'm hoping within the next week or two I'm be heading out there. After that, I don't know. You know, we'll